last night was amazing. Last night was feel good, needed really bad, and just all around awesome. And Carolina left nothing on the ice. Absolutely nothing. This is your morning drive. Carolina came out right out of the gates. They didn't play super good in the first period. I'd say probably the first, good little bit. But after about somewhere around the halfway or three-quarter mark of the period, they seemed to pick it up. And they knew what they had to do in the second period. They knew the assignment. Now, as I discussed the other day in my video that I made, if you haven't watched it, go to our YouTube channel. It's on there. I posted it up there. It's also here in the group. But in that second period, Carolina came out and they played great offense. They played great defense. And straight up, in the whole game, I feel like probably the best defenseman on the ice for the Hurricanes was Jalen Chatfield. Not because he got the penalty that, it led to the goal, but that helped a little bit. Didn't like to see that. But Jalen played. Ellie mentioned to me, she's like, she said, Chatfield gets out there every single game and just plays hard every single game. Gives everything he's got. And she also said, well, and two, he's fast. And that helps. And I said, yeah, he's an all-around great, a really good defenseman. And Carolina, again, got a diamond in the rough when they got him. And Carolina is notorious for getting players that are like that. And they have in the past. Look at Cam Ward, look at Bussy, look at Jalen, look at, it just goes. And this season, they have put together a really good team. Now, there's 2 games left in the series. Anything can happen. We've seen that. We've seen the anything can happen scenario. Carolina coming back from 3-0 to win the game. Come back from, 4-0 to tie the game and almost win it in double overtime. But Carolina hasn't. I mean, ultimately, they have played hard. They have ground the last 2 series out. First 2 series, they weren't easy. They were very physical, but they swept them. They swept both those teams. And Rod, this series, Rod has seen where the Hurricanes have struggled, and he saw where they needed to improve, whether it be a change in play a little bit or a change in the lineups. Now, yesterday there was about, 5 or 6 changes in the lineup, and the Hurricanes come out and took the game. And that last goal that Vegas made, I think, had the boys been in the right spot at the right time, that goal wouldn't have gone in. But that's neither here nor there. Jordan Staal, 2 goals. Wow. I think he ties with my first star from last night. And I'll have to go back and look, but I think that was Aho with the game winner. But anyway, he ties with he deserves a star, and I would tie him with the number 1 star. Ehlers came out after the game saying that his game wasn't good last night, and this, that, and the other. And I'm not going to be one of these people here to leave my seatbelt on. But Ehlers said his team was, or his play last night was not the best playing in the series, and he just had a bad game. Well, I don't know what he was thinking, but I think that was a pretty good opportunity there, and a pretty good game. Don't know what he was talking about there. But Hurricanes, Ehlers did great. He had 3 assists. I think he may have been referring to the penalties that he got. But okay. Did Carolina play a perfect game? No, they didn't. They had mistakes. Ehlers had 2. Just mindless mistakes, putting those pucks up over the wall and getting called a penalty. But those are things that can be corrected, and I'm sure they will be. I feel like that the Hurricanes, if you go back and look at the game, right there at the end of about midway to first period, maybe even 3/4 of the way through the first period, the Hurricanes seem to have worn down a little bit the Vegas Knights. They seem to have worn them down a little bit, not much, a little bit. And in the second period, they come in and scored those goals there, and totally took the air out of T-Mobile Arena. And because they were having a watch party there. And I'm sure that place was silent. But the Lenovo Center, they were blowing the top off that place. It sounded like it was so loud there. And you get your 5 men on ice, and then you get that arena going. That's your 6th man on the ice there. Because at that point, it's loud in there. You can't hear. You pretty much got to do hand gestures towards each other to make plays, things like that. It's just it's a lot there, and it was loud the whole game. It was loud the whole game. But the Aho goal, it was good to see Aho and Svechnikov and those guys step up. Jordan Staal step up. That's the players that they needed to have step up and win this game. Without them, this game, we would have lost. And you can go back and you can look at each game and say the same thing for each of those games that we've played. And you can go to the games that we did lose and say, well, yeah, I can see where and why we lost those games. Aside from whether you think Freddie made mistakes and allowed goals or not. There was mistakes made by Freddie. There was mistakes made by the boys. And those mistakes costed us games in this series. But I think we're past that. We're over that. They corrected that. And here we are. One more win away from winning the Stanley Cup. And, after the games that you've watched me do the lives, you see my initial reaction and the excitement or disappointment that's there. But then you come today and you see the rational, thought inputted side of that win or that loss. And Carolina has played a great playoff series. They've played phenomenal. I don't think that they're going to let up. I think it's just going to get better. I'm not going to speculate ahead of this. Those conversations will be coming soon. But the current team that we have right now, if we had a couple of pieces here, a couple of pieces there during the season, earlier or later, or some of the same players from last season, then we don't get this far. We don't get over that hump. And we're sitting at home doing other things besides watching the Stanley Cup Finals. So let that sink in. at the beginning of the season, before the season even started. And in the interview I had with Jeff Daniels, whom I will be interviewing after the regular season is over, hopefully with a few others as well. And hopefully I interview him in person. But I told Jeff Daniels I felt something different about this team this season. With the players that we brought in last season, with the players that we got during the off season, I said I feel something different about this team this year. I said I think that we get over the hump and we make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. And his reaction to that was, well, I hope so. And that was it. Now, going into the next interview I have with Jeff Daniels, whether it be on video or in person, I'm hoping in person, we have an opportunity to be talking about a totally different situation than what Carolina's had in the past 8 years, 7 years. And that is getting to the Eastern Conference Finals and getting beat. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, Florida Panthers didn't make it and they were great and they've beaten us this amount of times and that amount of times, or this team got there and they beat us X amount of times and they didn't make it, and this, that, and the other, and Carolina didn't have, whatever. Save that. Because Carolina in that last series played great. They didn't play excellent, but they played great. They had opportunities where they could have lost games and they won. So, and it wasn't an easy series. None of the series, you look at the two sweeps, and then the last game where they won, they lost that first game and then come back and beat and 1-4. Those series were physical. The first two series were probably the most physical of the three that they had played up to the Stanley Cup Finals. This series seems like it's got a little bit of everything in it. A little bit of physicality, a little bit of the the technical side of it, I guess you could say. But yeah, Carolina has proven this season that they deserve to be where they're at because of that, because they've played, because they stuck to the plan, because they had because they had the tenacity to go out and to stick to the program, to stick to the plays, and to believe in Rod and to believe what he was selling. And they had that this season, and they stuck to it, and that's why they are where they're at. But I'm going to leave it at this and apply this to your own lives, I guess. Carolina has done what no other team has been able to do in the past 8 years, this one included, that they've done what no other Carolina squad has been able to do, and that's get to the Stanley Cup Finals. I know last game, Rod sat there and he was literally jumping up and down, celebrating with the boys the second to last goal of the last game. And he knew they had that game. And he celebrated it with the boys. He celebrated, he just did awesome. And just what a game. What a game. What a game. And it's good to see Rod laughing and smiling and celebrating like that with them. And the work that he's put in has finally paid off. And how sweet it'll be if it comes complete with the Stanley Cup and he's able to celebrate that with the boys. But the theme that I've taken away from this year is it doesn't matter how far down you get. It doesn't matter how beat up or how bad things seem to be. There's always tomorrow. There's always another day. Battle through it. You have your core friends. You have your family. They're your teammates. Turn to them. Get help when you need help. And celebrate those victories when you get them. Those life victories. Because that's what I've seen Carolina do all season. This season. And with that, I'm going to leave you with that thought. Sunday, Carolina goes back to Vegas with the series lead 3-2. With the series lead for the first time in this series. And hopefully they can get the Stanley Cup win in that game. That's your morning drive. I'm Kyle Howard. Thank you for watching. Have an awesome day. Have a great weekend. And let's go Canes!